Alright, well, it is winter time here in Tennessee, too cold to ride, for me anyway. So, I got a little project that I want to do here with this 920 motor. As you can see, it's a full motor, doesn't have its carbs on it, but they're over here on the table, right over there. That's another set of carbs from another motor. But this motor, I got about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and I've never done anything with it. I just took it off the bike. It was like a in-process project somebody was doing and they gave up. So I don't know anything about this motor. So let me get the camera set down here and we will go through the steps to verify a motor that you picked up that was a non-runner and you really don't know the history on it, to be sure you don't mess things up or you spend a bunch of money trying to put something together and find out it's just junk. So let's get the camera set down and we'll see what we got to do. Alright, so step one, what I always do before I go spending any money on anything to verify a motor, I mean, I haven't even cranked this thing, haven't looked at it, I don't want to do all that until I verify some stuff, because I don't want to tear anything up if something was not quite finished up from where I picked it up. So step one, what we want to do is pull the plugs, because we want to get some oil down inside of the cylinders. Now, the reason for that is because this has been sitting for years and years and years. Now, it's been in my garage, so it's been pretty well protected. You see, I got little things stuck into pipes and paper in here to keep the dirt daubers and stuff out of there. So it's in good shape up here, but I don't know what it was doing before. So step one is we've got to get the plugs out, and we're going to put some oil down in these cylinders. So let me get these plugs out real quick. Then we will put a little bit of oil in there to make sure that we don't have an issue with things being stuck. Alright, so with the plugs out, and like I say, you got to resist the urge to just hook a battery up to a motor that you don't know anything about and try to crank it over. If it's on the bike, you know, the same deal. You want to go through some steps and make sure you're not going to damage the motor. So, what I do is get some of this stuff right here. It's this Marvel mystery oil. Could be anything, I mean, just anything to lubricate up on the piston. And we're just going to put a little bit in there, a few ounces in each cylinder. Now that's going to do a couple things for us. That's going to lubricate the top of that cylinder, and anything that was sitting in there, moisture or something like that, hopefully it's going to allow that to break free. The second thing it does for us is it's actually going to help our compression, because this motor hasn't been started in so long it's got to be dry as a bone. This is going to help our compression when we do our compression check, and it gives us a fighting chance of getting this thing to start with maybe stuck rings, stuff like that. So we got that done, so that's step one. Now let's move to step two on the verification. We're still not going to do anything about cranking the motor or anything like that. We're just going to let that stuff sit while we're looking at other things. So let's move on to step two of what it takes to check out this motor before we do anything else. Alright, so step two for me, another easy one before I want to spend any money on this motor. Now I got some parts, I could probably rebuild it, but you don't want to go throwing money at something you don't even know it's going to work. So the next thing I always check is the transmission. So I got it loose. If you're on the bike, you could rotate the back wheel and just drop it into gears and just see how smooth the gears are. So that's first gear, and then it comes up into neutral real smooth. Second gear, sounds good. Third gear clicks, fourth, and fifth. So all the gears work, so that's good. So that shows our transmission's in pretty good shape. First gear is a little hard, but we can probably work with that. Alright, so there's step two of checking things. So now the third step, with the transmission good, that stuff soaking, what I want to do, it's got oil in it. If you don't have any oil in it, that might be a risk that something's wrong with the motor. Somebody drained the oil. This one actually has oil in it. The sight glass is dark, but I don't know if that's oil or if that's oil on top of water. I don't know what's in there. So the next step is to just break the drain plug loose and verify what first comes out is oil, because oil floats on water. If there's any water in there, water's going to come out first. So I don't want to drain the oil out, waste money having to buy oil and put it in there. I'm just going to break that free, and then we're going to check and see if that is actually oil. So here we go to check and see what we got for oil. So all I want to do is just break that thing free, and I don't want it all draining out. I just want to see what's in there. So as we can see there, it actually is oil, it's not water, so that's good. It's kind of dirty, but it is all oil, so that means that the whole engine is full of oil, and that's a great thing because I don't have to worry about it being full of water for some reason. You know, it was left out in the rain or something prior to me getting it, something like that. So I'm in good shape that at least I have oil in this thing. So we'll tighten that back up and we'll move on to the next step of the verification. Alright, so step 4 on our motor verification here before we do anything is we need to check its time. And so what I got to get is all the covers off. And so these screws are pretty hard. Sometimes you have to have a impact driver to get them off, but these are pretty loose. So somebody's been in this motor, or those would be nice and tight. So let's get all these covers off. We got to take the cam covers off, the rocker covers off, all of these covers off so we can see what's going on, including this little guy right here. And don't forget, this one doesn't go with the rotation that the little arrow, it goes like a normal unscrew. So don't be fooled and try to crank it that way because that little arrow is telling you that's the rotation of the crank. So let's get him off and the rest of these covers off, and we'll be back to verify our timing just to make sure we don't tear something up. Alright, so with all the covers removed on everything, we can set up to do the timing, but right here is an exact example of why you got to do this stuff when you pick up a motor or a bike that you don't know the history on. Because first thing I noticed, I'll zoom in here and you can see it, but these, your adjustments for your valve gap, those aren't even tight, and so somebody stopped right here with whatever they were doing. Now check these head bolts. The head bolts are tight, so all the head, it hasn't been off here, and right here for the first gens they'll say number 1 or number 2. It has a number 1 on it, so this is the correct head for it. So what is going on here? Well, these are loose, so this must have been where they stopped, because you can see even not on top dead center I got gaps. So this would have been awful for me to just fire this thing up or try to fire it up, because that would throw it off tremendously. That back cylinder wouldn't do anything, and I'll show you something even worse. So over here, since these are loose, somebody's been messing around with the head. Well, this is the cam bolt. The cam bolt's loose, and this little bolt right down here, that little bolt's loose too. So somebody's had the cam out of it, and they were doing something, and then it must not have worked, or they got tired of working on it, or did something, but they stopped. But let me zoom in here and I'll show you. They had these covers off, and it must have sat exposed for a while, because it is nasty, nasty, nasty down inside of that valve cover. So if we zoom down in there, you can see just how nasty that is. It shouldn't have all that gunk all over the top of it right there. You can see all that stuff. So this sat exposed for some time, and it got dirt in it, and the oil that was inside of it is stuck to it. So we got to look at all this, so we're going to have to pause for a minute. I'm going to pull the cam out, inspect the cam, then we'll set the gap correctly for these once we go to top dead center. But I'm not moving anything until I pull that cam out. So all I'm going to do is get it to top dead center. It's pretty close right now where it's sitting. I'm just going to pull it back to top dead center so I can pull the cam out. We'll inspect that. If everything looks good, we'll throw it back in there, and then we'll show how to do the adjustments on it. So we'll be back in a minute once we get the cam out. Alright, so as we can see right here, get some light on this thing, the cam is actually intact. It's not scored up bad, but it's dry as a bone, and everything else looks pretty good though. So it looks like maybe there was just an issue that they ran into with the timing on it or something, and I don't know why they would have left that off. But the cam is intact, so we're in good shape. So I'm going to put some oil on this, some assembly oil, and we will put that guy back in there. Then we'll continue on our way. So we're still in good shape. Everything looks good. It's just super dirty in there. All kinds of crud inside of there. We just got to take care of that. So let me get this cam put back in, and then we will do our valve adjustment and put some Marvel's mystery oil down inside of there and see if we can wash some of this out. The good news is this is past the filter, so it just washes down here, runs right back down, goes into the bottom, and so the filter will collect it and get rid of all that contaminant for me when it cycles back up through. So it's not like it's going down to the rod or anything like that. It's not going to go to the piston, it's just going to go back into the sump, and then that'll all clean back up. So I don't have to worry about it being super dirty. I just got to get some of that out of there and get it lubed up. So let's get this guy put back in there and we will continue on. That feels good. Now we just got to get our gear on, but since we've already got the gear off, I'm going to put it into the T mark on the window, and I'll go ahead and set the timing on this back cylinder because since somebody's been messing with it. So if you go to try to rotate and it won't rotate, a lot of times the chain gets caught, and so right there you can see I had to pull the chain up because it wouldn't rotate. The chain was on the gear. So now I have to rotate it around. And right there is the T mark in the window. That'll be top dead center on the rear cylinder back here. And so now we can set our gear in and our timing will be correct. So I'm on the T and I'm on the dot. So now I know my timing's good. Now I can set the gap on these two guys right here, which we'll do right now. To do that, it's pretty simple. For the intake side, it's 4 thousandths, and for the exhaust, it's 6. So you can see it's huge right now. And so all I'm going to do is put that in there, crank that little guy down until it gets tight on 4. Right there, so it's tight on 4, so I'm going to back it up just a hair so it'll slide out. Then let's get a wrench on there. And then we adjust the nut until it tightens up. See, that's pretty close. A little bit loose. When I adjust the nut, it loosens it up, so watch where your Allen wrench is, move it just a hair, and check again. So right there is about 4 thousandths, and it slips in and out. So that one's good. Let's lock him down. Now we got to do the exhaust the same way. So let's go to our 6 thousandths. Tighten him up. So now we're in good shape. I'll go ahead and take my paper out of my exhaust there. So now we're in good shape on the cylinder back here. Everything's tightened up. So now we can try to rotate and make sure when we get over to the line in the window, then the front is on top dead center. Like I say, had I tried to start this motor with this loose, it could have ruined the whole thing in about 5 minutes when that cam fell out. That would have been the end of the journey for us. Put the line in the window. So now you'll see the little arrow marker and then the line. So now let's go over to the front side and see if we're on time. Hey, hallelujah, we're on time over here. So this cylinder is in good shape. I should be a little bit loose, and I am a little bit loose on my valves. And so we'll check those real quick. So somebody had messed around with this rear cylinder and gotten things out of whack. So let's go around to the front. We'll verify that in real quick. Then we'll be ready to put a little bit of Marvel's mystery oil down in here, and we'll move on to the next step. So I'm just going to verify this one the same way. 4 thousandths on the intake, 6 thousandths on the exhaust. That one's in time, so I'm in good shape. So we'll be back here in just a minute. Alright, so the front cylinder checked out great. So nobody been messing with that one. So I can take some of this paper out of this thing. So we are ready to put our little covers back on, but for this one, since it's so dirty, again, we get some of this Marvel's mystery oil, and I'm going to put that right on top, and we're going to lubricate all of that right there. Now it'll clean itself up, but we want to get some lubrication in this thing to make sure that we're not going to have issues. So the back one, I got to get a funnel. Let's get all the covers put back on, and then we'll be ready to head to the next step, which is actually just cranking it around by hand and making sure we don't hear any crunchy stuff and all of that. Alright, so with all the covers back on, now what we want to do is verify it. Now it's on time now, everything should be good, but I want to listen for crunchies just in case. That'll let me know if the cylinders got wet, because something was up with this cylinder. I don't know if water got down in there, who knows, but we'll be able to rotate it around and listen, and if you hear anything that sounds odd, you may consider you have to take the heads off. I want to rotate that direction, and what I'm going to do is just listen for any kind of noise that it's making, like crunches or knocks or anything. So actually everything sounds really smooth. I feel air coming out of this hole right here when the cylinders go down, so that's good. At least I know the pistons are moving, right? And so I feel air coming out. So overall, I don't hear anything. You could hear it hiss right there when the air came out for each cylinder. So I think we're in good shape. So with all of that mechanically checked out, now it's time to hook some power up to it and actually see if we can make it rotate, and then we can check some compression and do like that. So I'll get this guy set up, put over here. It'd be like if you had it on the bike, and then we'll be ready to go. So we'll be back in a minute once I get my bare bones harness hooked up over here. Alright, so with our bare bones harness hooked up here, and the only difference in the 750 first gen and a 920 first gen is the TCI. So I got both of them on there. We got the 920 hooked up. All the rest of this is the same. And if you're interested in how to set up a bare bones wiring for this thing, there's another video out on the channel, and you can check out this very same little board right here on how to put it together. But we got our plugs out, so we're good there. And what we're going to do is just cycle it for a minute, because all I want to see is if it's going to spark or not, to tell me if all the wiring down on the left side is good. But I'm not going to keep cranking and cranking, because what I want to do is break these banjos free on the outlets of the head right here and see if I get some oil up there, because this one was all dirty inside and I'm wondering if it's getting any oil or not. I'll be able to break those guys free here in just a minute. But first off, I just want to cycle it a couple times and just check for spark on these plugs and make sure that all the wiring is good. So let's get her turned on. We got voltage, so let's crank it over a little bit and just see. So I got a good spark on that one. Let's get over here. And got a decent spark on that one. It's a little bit orange. This may be a resistor wire with a resistor plug, but I'll check that out. But at least it's sparking, so that means everything's good there. So that's all I wanted to verify on the wiring. Now I'm going to break these banjos free, and I'm actually going to crank it and crank it without the plugs until I see some oil come out. If I don't see any oil come out in a few minutes of cranking, we're going to have to pull the filter off, because maybe they put the filter in backwards. But let's get that set up. Fortunately for me, I can turn this switch off right there. It disables the TCI. That's part of that bare bones setup. Now it's not going to fire my plugs, and I can just sit there and crank. So let me break these guys free, and then let's see if we got any oil coming up to these heads. What I should see when I start cranking it, oil should start dripping from that little guy right there. And the same for this one. And that one's going to verify that I'm getting oil all the way up to the heads. Super important. Alright, so with our switch off, now we're not going to fire the plug, so they can just sit up there. Now we're going to crank and crank, and we're going to look for oil to drip out of those right there. Well, unfortunately, I ain't seeing no oil. There is no oil dripping out here. See, there's none on my hand. And there's no oil dripping out the back. So something's up with the oil pump. Either that or the filter's put in backwards. I don't know. But that definitely, you cannot start the motor unless you see some oil coming out of these right here. So we got to switch around to the other side, and we're going to pull the oil filter off and see if maybe somebody stuck it in there backwards and that's going to tell us why we're not getting any oil. So let's get the thing spun around, take its cover off. Oh, and by the way, all of that cranking, you can see that Marvel's mystery oil stuff where I had the thing in it. You can see all of that comes out. So it's blowing it out nicely. Everything looks pretty good, but I'm not getting any oil out of there, and that is very, very, very worrisome. Alright, so we got to pull our oil filter cover off, and let's just see, maybe the filter's in backwards. Who knows? Can't ever tell what people have done. Like I say, this is absolutely why you have to do all these checks when you first get a motor, because you can fire the thing up, you'll run the motor in 5 minutes just because something's not working right. So we're going to lose a little oil, but that's why we got a thing here. Now the filter is in correctly, and there's oil up here. So we got oil coming up to here, it's just not getting up to there for some reason. But they got the O-rings on wrong. The orange O-ring is supposed to go there, and the black O-ring is supposed to go here. So that is a bit of an issue. Wouldn't prevent it from flowing, but the filter is in there correctly and it's not stopped up, so we're in good shape there. It may be because this motor sat so long, it's just got to take a little bit. But one thing you can do to verify that your pump is at least working is look in your little sight glass window. So I'll zoom in there in a second, and I got the oil level just a little bit higher than the window. So if the pump is working, when you crank it, even with just cranking with the plugs out, that level ought to go down. If it goes down, then that means the pump is taking the oil away and it's driving it up to where it needs to go. So let's zoom in here real quick, and then we'll crank it and just verify that the oil level is dropping. If that oil level doesn't drop in that little sight glass, then you got problems with the pump. So let's turn her back on and give her another crank and see if that level is going to drop right there. So there we go. So we can see the oil level drops. So the pump is working. It's taking it away and it's taking it up into the motor. If there's no oil going up to the heads, we're going to have some problems. Alright, so next up we're going to do a compression check. So we'll leave the plugs out and then we'll crank it over a little bit and we'll see if we got any compression on these cylinders. Now we're going to check compression. Then after that we're going to put the plugs in and we're going to check and see how strong the starter is. Will it actually turn this motor over? So next up is compression. Now both plugs are out. The compression checker's on the rear, because he's my worrisome one right now for this thing. So let's see what kind of compression we got. So right here is about 120, there's 150 dead up in the center. So let's just see what you got. Not too bad, about 140, so that's not bad on that cylinder. So we can go around here to the front at 140. Seems pretty healthy now. It does have the Marvel's mystery oil in it, so if I got issues with rings or slight scoring, it's gonna throw it off a little bit, but that's not too bad considering how long this motor has sat. So we're good on the back. Let's see what we got on the front. So now we're about 150 dead on the bottom, 120 right about there. So let's just see what the front crank said. Way up there about 150, so healthy on its compression, that's for dang sure. So now the last stop is to put the plugs back in, and then we're going to have the motor load down, because right now it's just been freewheeling. It's going to load down with the plugs in it. You're going to get that compression. We're going to hear if this starter can actually do its job. Alright, so with the plugs back in, everything is set back except for the carburetors, which we'll put on once we can verify that this thing's going to crank over. Then we'll come back and we'll see if we can fire this thing up. But for the most part, that's all the checks that you need to do to verify your motor. Like I say, we caught a really big thing on his back head with everything being loose. That would have just destroyed this motor. The oil thing is a little bit of a worry, I'll keep playing with it a little bit before I fire it up. But just to see if the starter's strong enough to crank this thing. Now the plugs are back in and we're going to see how heavy it loads it down when I fire it up. So here we're going to go trying to start. Yeah, you can hear that box of rocks crap. So that's why we want to do this study over here by putting the 1000 side cover on, because this one's janky. You can hear it kick out, but see, it's not even staying engaged. So it's a very good candidate for what we're going to do for this motor, because this one is not going to start this motor. So there we go. We got everything verified. At least the starter is strong enough to crank it. Now we just got to figure out what we got to do with this oil, and we'll be in good shape. So we'll get set up, put the carburetors on it, and I'll hook up some gas, and we'll try to fire this thing up. As soon as I play with this oil thing just a little bit more, we'll be in good shape. Alright, well, we're back for day 2 here. Last night I got all of the carburetors put on, and we're all prepped up to fire this motor up after we've done all the checks. Oh, and by the way, it's like 16 degrees here in Nashville, and that's Fahrenheit, so I don't even want to be out here. But the thing that's bothering me is that whole deal with the oil not coming out right there. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to end the video here with it firing up, but we'll make a second video. So there'll be a part 2 that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to check all the oil system. Now I don't have to take the motor totally apart. I just got to go through and I got to clean out everything and see at what point there's something stopping up or there's something down in the bottom not working. So we'll start at the top. But anywho, there's the list of all the things you got to do to prep, and as you can see, we ran into some major problems that if I'd have just felt froggy and hit the switch on this thing, if it had been on the bike, I'd have been pulling it off and rebuilding the whole motor or throwing it away and getting another one, because we caught 2 big major things. Somebody had been messing with the rear head back there and had all that loose, and I don't have any oil flow. So there we go. Unfortunately, we don't get to see it start up in this video, but coming up, we'll have a video of going through the entire oil system for the head up here and figuring out why this motor won't work. Well, alrighty. Hope this helps someone with all the checks, and thanks for watching.